felt like I was continuously getting punished. Everybody waited to punish me after so many years.
Indiana nurse is accused of abusing or stealing drugs. A year-long iTeammate investigation has uncovered a system that puts patients at risk by allowing addicted nurses to remain on the job.
iTeammate's Bennett Haverly is here now, and he explains why some question if that system is fair. Bennett?
David Brooke, our investigation examined hundreds of cases of nurses who admitted to having an issue with drugs or alcohol. More often than not, nurses who were caught stealing or abusing drugs were allowed to return to work and treat patients. What's curious to some is how the State Board of Nursing decides which nurses get suspended and which are given that second chance.
I knew I was a damn good nurse. I know I was a damn good nurse. You know.
To understand Melissa Palazzo's struggle,
and that was taken from me.
We must go back to last summer at a hearing before the State Board of Nursing.
I know what I did was terribly horrible. And if I could go back in time, I would change it in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat, I would.
Melissa stole Suboxone, a drug given to recovering heroin addicts, from the Southern Indiana Drug Treatment Center where she worked as a nurse. Record shows she gave it to her boyfriend, who then sold it.
You know, I'm very ashamed of what I did, and I let myself down.
She says she didn't use the drugs.
And I let everybody down.
What's more unsettling, she says, is a double standard. The nursing board found out she stole drugs, but allowed her to continue to work as a nurse and see patients for another 2 years before deciding to punish her.
He needs to be suspended. So she's a drug dealer in one line, she's a thief, and she also puts her patients at risk.
The board decided to suspend Melissa's license for 3 years.
They took everything from me. And that's what bothers me.
Here's what happened. In December of 2014, records show the nursing board knew Melissa had stolen drugs from work and decided to renew her license as valid to practice pending the outcome of an attorney general's investigation. But the AG didn't file a complaint for another year, and it would be another 6 months before the board punished her.
Why let me practice and you know, for so long, and then all of a sudden feel like I was a threat?
If that seems strange, that the nursing board would renew a license and then come back later and punish that same nurse, iTeammate found she's not alone. We reviewed the past 3 years worth of board minutes and more than 800 renewal applications. What we found were several inconsistencies in how the board punishes nurses.
I developed a substance abuse problem.
This nurse admitted to using drugs on the job. Unlike Melissa, her nursing license was not suspended. She's asked that we conceal her identity.
I'm not a bad person, I was a sick person, and I think that's what is misunderstood.
Despite being accused of stealing drugs and admitting to her addiction, this nurse got her license renewed on probation. She did so by entering a settlement agreement with the Attorney General's office. Our investigation found more often than not, nurses who accept these backdoor deals got probation and were able to go right back to work treating patients.
These cases that you're bringing up are potentially dangerous to patients, and those are cases where revoking someone's license in an emergency situation is often what needs to happen, and it does happen.
While it's true the board can call for an emergency suspension, it's not often used. In fact, of the hundreds of cases we reviewed involving drugs or alcohol, 115 ended with nurses being given probation. 45 cases led to suspensions. In one case we examined, a nurse was found lying unconscious with vials of fentanyl beside him and used syringes. But because he had been successful in rehab, the state cut him a deal and gave him probation. In another case, a nurse admitted to taking several doses of narcotics each time she worked. She too was not suspended. She entered a plea agreement and was given probation. In another case, a nurse accused of stealing was fired from St. Vincent Hospital, then hired by Johnson Memorial, where she continued to allegedly steal. Her license was suspended, but she was later given probation. Despite several attempts to talk to the board director, he would not agree to a sit-down interview or to answer our questions about these inconsistent rulings. But Chuck Lindquist did. He's the program manager for the Indiana State Nursing Assistance Program, which helps coordinate treatment programs for nurses accused of substance abuse. Lindquist says generally if a nurse is seeking treatment, the board will grant them the benefit of probation. But when pressed on the inconsistencies we found, he said this.
Depending on the day and the case, there could be some subjective, feelings that come into play when decisions are made.
That sounds like it's not universal then. Like we don't have a uniform standard for how we punish nurses.
You're right, it's not clear cut.
It's not just the rulings themselves. Nurses we interviewed have complained about the length of time it takes the board to take action. Our investigation found it takes anywhere between 3 months to 3 years.
You're finding that the system isn't working the way it should be. That's something that needs to be addressed.
Because I know that's behind me now. That's all behind me.
But in front of her, questions. Is there shared blame?
I just felt like they just took my entire life from me over one freaking mistake.
Melissa is eligible to renew her license, but says she likely won't because of the high cost of attorney's fees and the fact that new employers will know about her past convictions and sanctions. As a result of this investigation, the Attorney General's office says it is important to shed light on that issue and that it might be necessary to devote more resources to investigating these matters.
Bennett, did anybody on the board tell you why they wouldn't talk with you about this?
No, historically, they have refused to answer our questions about their past rulings on other issues, other questions that we've had for them. This time around, we didn't really get much of an explanation other than they didn't have time to meet with us, and we even submitted our questions through email. They did not answer them through that format either.
Well, an issue that obviously needs to be addressed, and I know you'll continue to follow it.
Sure.
Follow the developments there. Bennett, thank you.